Happy to have you all with us. This is part of our MIStart2 series of webinars this summer and heading into the fall. We are recording this session and we will get this posted as soon as we can after, so you can review or share with colleagues that aren't able to be here live. Okay, and I am joined by some of my fantastic colleagues. This is us from the Center for Student Success. Precious Miller is currently on maternity leave, but Erica Oriens and Katie Giardello are here with us today to be part of this meeting. Happy to have you. You've probably had a gazillion opportunities to either be with us or other people on Zoom meetings in the last few months, but just a couple of things that we have found are working well for us. One is to rename yourself to include your college. This is particularly helpful for our guest presenters so they can see where people are from. So if you go to the participant list at the bottom of your system tray and you click there, you will see a list of participants. And then you go to your name, there's a little more button, and then you can rename yourself. Other ways to engage today are using the chat box. Or raising your hand to speak. We're not a terribly big group, so we'll try to monitor if you raise your hand, but if we're not getting to you, please feel free to unmute yourself and speak. I've muted everybody now, but you can unmute yourself if you need to say something, or you can raise your hand and we'll unmute you. Another way that we have to engage is through our Twitter account, and I'm going to ask Katie to just say a few words about that. She is our tweeter-in-chief. Katie, you want to take it away?
Taking it for all it's worth. Totally putting it on my thank you. I'm putting it on my resume and everything. We have been ramping up in these times of social distancing where we can't as easily convene with our many partners in the Michigan Student Success Network. We've been ramping up our opportunities to engage with folks digitally. And certainly we've been doing that through media like this, where we're having these Zoom video conference calls and so on. But we're also taking to social media, specifically Twitter. And we just finished a tweet chat. We've been doing Twitter Tuesday lunchtime tweet chats. We're grateful we're not doing them once a week because they're a little bit stressful and high energy and kind of high intensity. But we did finish one today from 12 to 1 that focused on our My Best initiative, which deals with financial stability among community college students. And we had a wonderful opportunity to engage with some of our national, state, and regional partners, as well as many of the Michigan community colleges that participated. And we really enjoy getting to, I call it socially distanced networking, just getting to connect with one another on Twitter, and then also get to hear and see what people are doing around student success issues, both in Michigan and beyond. And Jenny has pulled up a new slide here. I actually linked in on the chat our Twitter profile. So if you are on Twitter, you can go there and follow us using that link. But Jenny is linking out to the MCSS initiatives and resources page, where we have 2 short videos that talk a little bit more about our Twitter campaign. One explains why we're doing it, and then one, we have heard from people, and ourselves included, who are not as savvy with Twitter. So one of them shows you some tricks of the trade. If you're not a Twitter user, you got 6 minutes of me kind of showing you around and explaining how you can engage on Twitter and make it productive for all of us. So we hope to see you there. Our next Twitter Tuesday lunchtime chat is August 25th. And it's focused on faculty. So some of you may really want to try to be there, because we are using a hashtag called MIFacultyLead, which I have put into the chat as well. And we're trying to highlight practices from Michigan faculty that are promising both in COVID and beyond as we look for improvements in student success and equity. So Jenny, fill in anything that I missed, but we'd love to see you all on Twitter.
Yes, indeed. And Katie will be tweeting occasionally through the meeting. So be sure to check back if you have a Twitter account or if you start a Twitter account. And we are at like 414 Twitter followers, and we are trying to get to 500. So if you follow us today on Twitter, we will send you a toaster. No, not really. We don't have any toasters, sorry, but we will follow you back and promise you a good time with us on Twitter. Oh, and also our friends at CCBC have said you can follow at ElpDevEd, which I think we already follow. But there's they tweet as well. So I'm sure Halle and Elsbeth will tell you more about that. Well, maybe they will tell you more about that. But you'll be hearing more from them in a few minutes in this meeting. I just have a few things that I want to share with all of you. I want to remind people several colleges have turned in this developmental education practices scale of adoption self-assessment. Several colleges have not yet turned this in. I would love to have these all in by the end of July, which is coming up in just a few days. But this is an instrument that will allow us to get a baseline of where colleges are as they dive into this developmental education reform work. If you have questions about that, please drop them in the chat or send me an email, but would love to see a few more of those in by the end of this month. And I want to highlight our upcoming MIStart2Finish events. We have, this is the fourth webinar this summer. We have had two with the Dana Center focused on math. We had one which was quite widely attended, focused on the core principles. That was our kickoff. Some of those are posted on our on the event page website. We are working on getting those recordings rendered and posted as quickly as possible so you can share them. Coming up, then we're going to take a bit of a break in August, and coming up then we will have part of our voluntary framework of accountability data series. One of them will focus on developmental education, and that will be on September 15th. And then we'll have a series of two equity-minded teaching strategies workshops on September 29th and October 6th. So the events page at mcca.org is your best friend for finding out what's going on with the Center for Student Success and the workshops that we have for you. Before I turn it over to our colleagues from CCBC, I just want to highlight one more thing that you maybe perhaps would like to know about. Our colleagues at the Michigan College Access Network, MCAN, have started an initiative called the Michigan Partnerships for Academic Transitions. This will be focused on the transition between high school and college, specifically on students who are not considered college ready by the time that they're entering their senior year of high school. And so MCAN is reaching out to folks at your colleges, largely through your chief academic officers, to see if, to recruit a community of colleges who are interested in working with their K-12 partners to do things like redesign placement practices, design transition courses for students that are still in high school, and also work on redesigning developmental education once those students do transition to the community college. So your CAO is probably hearing from Jamie Jacobs and her team at MCAN to talk about this. They're working on this. There was an interest form available July 13th. They're going to have follow-up conversations in August and September, and they'll be designing the program and launching a formal application on October 5th for this learning community. So that's just something to be aware of. And then finally, there's a slide here about how to contact us if you do not know. It's very easy to click on any of these and get right to the staff at Michigan Center for Student Success. I'll pause for a minute to see if there are any questions. And I am not seeing anything. Okay. So then I'm going to turn it over to Elsbeth Mantler and Haleh Izini from the Community College of Baltimore County. You probably are aware, if you're on this webinar, that we had a very successful implementation of the Accelerated Learning Program that started way back in like 2013, 14. We have a lot of colleges who have already scaled ALP all the way up. Integrating reading and writing is the next iteration of ALP in this leading college at CCBC. And so I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Haleh, and I'm going to make her the host.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I'm going to stop my share.
Okay.
You're on, Haleh.
Thank you. So what I'm going to do is start sharing my screen, and then we will begin with introductions. One moment, please. I'm almost there.
I can introduce myself while you get it set up.
Okay.
My name is Elsbeth Mantler. Haleh and I are the co-directors of the Accelerated Learning Program at the Community College of Baltimore County. I come from the English department. I have an English background. I've been teaching at CCBC. This will be my 11th year. And Haleh and I have been the co-directors since 2018 of ALP.
Yes. I am Haleh Izini, and I am part of academic literacy faculty at the Community College of Baltimore County. And we are, as Elsbeth just said, the co-directors, and the co-director model was implemented when we started integrating reading and writing at our college. So we have Elsbeth representing English, and I'm representing reading or academic literacy, and you'll see how that works as we go through our presentation. But what we'd like to do is just start off by asking you, I know Jenny, you just went through a lot of this, but make sure you remain on mute. We do want this to be a collaborative, open discussion. During some points, we've built collaboration in here. Please use the chat box to ask questions, and Elsbeth and I will monitor that to respond to your questions at the end of sections of our presentation. And we're just grateful to be here, so thank you. So this is our agenda that we are going to go through. And what I'd like to do is we're modifying this a bit. Who I am, who are you? Elsbeth and I just introduced ourselves. And what we'd like you to do is in the chat box is give us some background information as to what knowledge you have about integrated reading and writing, just brief introductions of that, so that when we're monitoring that chat box, we can look to see where you are. We'd also like to ask that when you do have questions, when you raise your hand or at the end of sections when we're opening it up to all of you to ask questions if you have any, or bring up comments, then go ahead and introduce yourselves, tell us what institution you're from, and verbally share your knowledge and background relating to IRW. We're going to go through CCBC demographics, and Elsbeth, this is you, so I'll just scroll through for you.
Sure. So we just wanted to provide a little bit of context.
Elsbeth?
Yes, can you hear me?
Now I can.
Okay. We just wanted to provide a little bit of context of the population of our college, just so that you can get an idea of what we're talking about. I'm sure many of you have similar populations, you may have different. And so we just like to start our presentations with this. We are a larger institution. We have multiple campuses. We have 3 major campuses, but we also have extension centers. We have over 30,000 students. The average age of our student, as you can see, is 36. So we have a lot of non-traditional students. We have over half of our students are students of color. Over half of our students work 20 hours or more a week. 50% receive some sort of financial aid. And what we think is one of the most interesting things, and this is important because this is one of the reasons we moved to IRW, you can see only 11% of our students are full-time. And so that part-time part will become important later on. If you'd like to see the way we used to have our developmental sequence and the way that we have it now, again, this is all related to IRW. Before 2016, this was the sequence that students received when they tested into the lowest level of both reading and English. So as you can see here, we had 2 reading courses, and then we had 2 writing courses. That's what the English 051 and English 052 are. There was a potential for a student to have 16 hours of remedial work before reaching English 101 at this time. At this point, we realized, well, I'm going to get into why that number 16 is important and how we changed that. But when we decided to go into integration, we changed the ALP co-requisite course, and it's no longer a writing course. The ALP co-requisite course is an integrated reading and writing course called academic literacy. And we're going to explain what that means also.
We're not able to hear you, Elspeth.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Holly, this is you.
I'm sorry, y'all.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, this is you, Holly.
Yes. Okay. So academic literacy 052 and 053 represent our integrated reading and writing model at CCBC. We used to have the levels of reading 051 and reading 052, which were our standalone classes of DevEd reading. We also had DevEd English classes, which I will not go into right now. But as far as accelerated 052, the course description is right there. It's the 5 billable hours. And what it is the prereq to our Composition 1 class, which is our English 101. Academic Literacy 053 is also a prereq for English 101. And this is the class that's paired with our ALP class. So this is now our ALP class. And you can see in the course description that it describes that the course is critical thinking, reading, and writing to support success in English 101 and other 100 level courses. So we have full integration, and we've removed our English and reading DevEd courses. So we have our new ELP IRW model, which reflects the courses that I just went over. But the goal of ELP in general and academic literacy, even in the standalone format, is that these courses reduce stigma, they improve attachment, you have stronger role models with your classmates because you have the placed English 101 students mixed in with the students who placed into the DevEd classes. You have a cohort type of feel. It's not technically a cohort according to the literature, but students really bond with each other. It takes away that stigma from what the students previously experienced when they had the earlier versions of developmental sequences. It allows for more individual attention. Our classes cap out to 10 students in that ACLT 053 class. in the ELP model, and then English 101 has 20 students total. So then they have 10 English 101 place students and then 10 ACLT 053 place students in that comp course. So it's very individualized, and then it gives us time to deal with those non-cognitive factors that our students are managing and dealing with. And that's really important during this time, especially when we're dealing with this pandemic. And so then finally, it allows our students with DevEd placements in writing and reading to just directly enroll into Composition 1, English 101. So how does an ELP developmental class differ from traditional developmental reading and DevEd writing courses? The goal of our traditional reading and writing courses was really to pass those DevEd courses so they be ready for English 101. And now we've removed that. The goal of ELP is so that the students really pass English 101 so that they're prepared for their Gen Ed classes, which is a huge change maker for our students. So CCBC, why we've done this at CCBC integration, especially in our ELP classes, we scaled up at 80% in our ELP courses. And then at that point, we realized that our problem was that students, even though they were placing in ELP because their English DevEd class allowed them to enroll in ELP, they were placing, we'll go over our placements mechanisms in a little bit, but we were using the AccuPlacer and students were still placing in developmental reading courses. And so that developmental reading placement was a barrier for our students. And at this point, we now have academic literacy, which is fully integrated, so we don't have the two separate DevEd courses that our students need to take. So we also found out that part-time students were the most impacted. 89% of our students are part-time. Elspeth noted that a significant number of our students are part-time earlier on. And we knew that we had to fix the problem for them. Most of our part-time students are taking fewer than 9 credits. And so if they were placing in reading, placing in DevEd English, and then needed to take English 101, it was just overwhelming amount of non-billable hour coursework for our students to take on.
Can I add one thing to that too? You can leave the new slide up, but the other thing that was happening too is the students were enrolled in ALP. They were taking a writing companion course with English 101. Then they had a completely unrelated reading course with a separate teacher, a textbook, and those two faculty members never talked to each other. So they could have been getting conflicting information about how to write an essay, how to annotate, all of these things. And yeah, this is what we're telling them to take all in the same semester. And so when we really thought about the principles behind this, it didn't make sense that the students were taking these two things separately. We thought we could do this in one holistic way and be able to have that co-requisite course have both the reading and writing happening at the same time. And so that was another reason why we switched to the academic literacy model, because it really didn't make sense, again, to separate these skills instead of use them together, which we know that they are.
Thank you. Okay, so we've color-coded the ELP principles. We have ELP principles, really Peter Adams, who developed ELP, created these ALP principles. So we have integrated reading, writing, and critical thinking skills, backward curriculum design, and thematic units, all in purple, because those are the areas that we're really going to delve into today. And then we have our other 4 principles that are very important. And we just want to point out that acknowledging effects of non-cognitive issues on student success is really the prime reason why Peter Adams created ELP, developed ELP. But again, we're not going into that today, but we just wanted to acknowledge that that is the primary principle of ALP. So I will quickly go through our placement measures at CCBC. We use multiple measures. at CCBC to place our students. This is fairly new for us. We started multiple measures in 2017, and we're looking at any measure in these domains. So transcripts from colleges, SAT scores above 480 in reading and writing. We have the ACT scores where they need a 21 or above, unweighted high school GPA with a 2.5 or higher, and then AccuPlacer placement tests within the last 2 years. And these measures, if students meet any of these measures, then they place directly into Composition 1. So the next slide shows that if, well, let me click through, but if a student does not have the measures, any of the measures from the previous slide, then they have had 2 options. Self-directive placement or directive self-placement, which is known at most colleges, but CCBC has renamed it to SDP, is our method of placement right now. It's our primary method of placement. So CCBC piloted this last spring, and now we are in full implementation, and our full implementation started this summer for our summer courses. And this is only for academic literacy and English students. We do not have self-directed placement for math. With SDP, it's a program, a placement process that was built internally. And once the student goes through the entire SDP online tool, it's a tool, they choose where their placement is. So they have the choice to go into Academic Literacy 052, which is that 5 billable hour class. They can take ALP, where they're taking 053 with comp, or they can place directly into 101. We used to offer AccuPlacer Next Gen, but we're unable to do that during COVID. And so we have that footnote that right now, we are only using SDP as our primary placement measure, as our only placement measure.
When the students don't have any of those other scores.
Correct.
So if anyone has any questions, there's one I'd like to answer in the chat. If you have any other questions about anything we just went over, now would be a good time to add that to the chat before we move on to kind of the theoretical underpinnings of IRW. One person said, I'm unclear on how to integrate the reading with lower level writing course. It sounds like you just eliminated lower level writing. So the answer to that would be, we eliminated all standalone English and reading developmental, and we created one course. So we shortened the pipeline, but we also integrated the pipeline, is one way to think about it. We only have one course below ALP, and that's that Academic Literacy 052, that is 5 hours. So a student can either take that, or they're placed into Academic Literacy 053, which is the ALP. So they're taking English 101 at the same time as that. Or they're deemed college ready and they just take English 101.
And we'll go into detail about how that integration occurs later on in this presentation. So since I'm sharing, I cannot view the comments, Elspeth. So are you,
Okay.
Do others have questions?
The SDP tool available for us to see. I'm working on a similar tool at HFC and would love an example.
We will send you contact for the leads on the people who developed self-directed placement, and they're willing to collaborate. They are absolutely willing to collaborate.
And that's the only questions I can see right now.
Okay. Jenny, if you see others raising their hands, will you just let us know, and we will certainly stop at some point.
I will, yes.
Thank you. That's great. Okay, so I'm going to move forward. Elspeth is going to go through this.
So now we're going to move into some of the theoretical aspects of IRW, and then after this, we're going to show you what does this actually look like in the classroom to give you tangible examples. But whenever we present, we always want to show that we got this from the experts. We didn't just kind of do it out of necessity. This was something that has been studied for a while. And this presentation was delivered by people from CCRC, Susan Bickerstaff, who we have worked closely with at CCBC at the League for Innovation in 2017. So integrative courses, again, that's what this workshop is all about. These are the things that we want to focus on. These are the major strategies used. Metacognition, which I'm going to show you in a little bit, what does that actually look like? We're asking students to explicitly reflect on their reading and writing process. Thematic course design, we're also going to go over that today. Text-based writing. So every single writing assignment in my courses has some text base to it. They are responding to text. There are no personal essays, nothing like that. Embedded skill and strategy. This is one of the most important things. Everything is done in context. We no longer do skill and drill. So if we are working on either reading or writing skill, we are doing it in context of their larger essay or the theme that we're working on. They're not just doing it for busy work, quote unquote. And again, we're going to show you tangible examples of what this looks like. So the additive approach is what we do not want. Okay, I want to make that clear because sometimes people think, well, additive sounds good. No, this is the thing we don't want, okay? So additive approach is when you try to do reading and writing separately. So I'm going to do both, but I'm going to do one at a time. So some of these quotes we thought were really effective because they show kind of this mindset. I thought, well, I'll keep comp quizzes. They used to be grammar and punctuation, and I can throw the reading in. So, you know, just throwing things in where they fit. So this person isn't being very intentional about combining both things. I think the idea of integrating the two, whether a reading week or session or class, will help adjuncts. Certainly it would help me to be able to approach reading as a separate task, but also relate it the next day as a writing opportunity. This is the opposite of what we're wanting to do. So what we want to think of is melding the reading and writing together, not thinking of them as two separate tasks that we're trying to kind of mash into one course period of time. So again, they're not separate, they can be combined, and we'll show you what that looks like in a couple minutes. Again, additive is, I'm going to do a little reading now. Okay, now let's talk about sentence fragments. Okay, now open your book and we'll read a chapter. Okay, now let's focus on writing again. This is not what we want to do. Again, it's a skill and drill approach. It's using textbooks and older models of curricular materials. And again, how can I take an existing activity that I already have and put a little more reading in it? So we're still thinking about like sprinkling one separately from the other, and we should be thinking about them being the same thing. Now, the challenge of this, like I said, when you aren't doing this properly, there's not enough time in the class to do both, because you're thinking that you're having to teach a whole reading course and a whole writing course in the time where you only have one course. So let's say 3 credit hours for us. So this is a visual representation of what IRW is. So instead of it being one skill, another skill, another skill, it's all one. It's all happening at the same time. And again, I'm going to show you what does this actually look like in my classroom.
Okay. So Elsbeth will show you in a moment. She has a fully vetted unit that she's going to share. But before we do that, we have a couple other things. So the Council of Writing Program Administrators came out with a statement. And I'm going to scroll through this website just quickly just to highlight this. The WPA outcome statement was first published in 2014, and it has since been revised a bit. So this is the 3.0 version. What I'd like to do is just point out a few things. Under critical thinking, reading, and composing, the statement really highlights that composition courses, composition 1 courses should be fully integrated. So critical thinking is the ability to analyze, synthesize, interpret, and evaluate ideas, information, situations, and texts. When writers think critically about the materials they use, whether print text, photographs, data sets, and so on, they separate assertion from evidence, evaluate sources, and so on and so forth. And then when you look at what first year comp students should do, you can see clearly that their recommendations are that students are integrating reading and writing along with critical thinking. And we have used this statement in order to develop our course objectives for both academic literacy and for Composition 1 and Composition 2. So we wanted to show you that. And it's linked in our PowerPoint that Jenny will share with you as a resource, or maybe she already has sent that to you, so you can look at that on your own.
It is posted on the events page on the mcca.org. And
Thank you.
I didn't know if you had seen that there's a question in the chat about who teaches the courses.
Oh, that's a great question. So the people who teach these courses are English and academic literacy faculty. We have deep cross-training and collaboration within this, our school and within all of the disciplines of the school. So academic literacy and English are two different departments, but we collaborate all the time, and faculty in our areas teach Comp 1, teach ALP, teach all of these courses. And I know some states are very different because of accreditation issues. We know that that's true. In our state, our accreditation body allows for this type of cross teaching to occur. So, I mean, we feel fortunate that we're allowed to. I don't know if you have the same circumstances in your state, but we do. So we're allowed to get around that. We do have faculty, when they are going up for promotion, sometimes their supervisors will say, you know, your academic literacy or previous reading faculty, maybe you'd like to get into a writing program so that you can work on that for your future promotion, for example. So some faculty do go back to school and try to get the training in other areas if they need to, but really it's cross collaboration and training within the institution that's been most meaningful. Don't you think, Elspeth?
Yes, and to be clear, academic literacy was previously the reading department, and they fully were trained in IRW and took the name academic literacy because their focus really changed. In what year did you become academic literacy?
In 2015 or 2016. Okay. Yes.
Because the person asked, is it reading faculty, English faculty? I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Yes. Does that answer all of the questions?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, that was the only one.
So this is the last slide that we wanted to point out for this section. This is the backwards design framework which we employ. We utilize backwards design. For example, I just said that we revised the English 102, which is Comp 2 Common Course Outlines, along with the Comp 1 Common Course Outlines, and we made sure that we involved academic literacy faculty on to provide some feedback, because we use backward design where you're looking at the 102 class and what do the 101 students need in order to be successful or ready to enter that 102. And then when you look at academic literacy, what do those students need in order to be ready for that 101 comp course? So we do this in our courses too, where you're teaching the class and you want to make sure you identify the objectives for your students. And that essentially is, what will students know or understand or be able to do? Determine what evidence will demonstrate that the objectives have been met. And that's when you're asking, how will you and the students know when they have been successful? And then finally, plan learning activities which generate learning, retention, and transference. And that's when you're asking what needs to be done in the classroom to prepare students for the assessment. So this backwards design, we have the citation of where we have looked at, and it's through ASCD. I think that backwards design is really essential in building your integrated reading and writing classes, and we really employ this in our ALP classes.
And you'll see when you see my unit too, but the backward design is important, and why we're showing this today is it gets us away from the skill and drill and it gives us into the contextualized work, because we're always working towards that end goal of the essay or the project or whatever it happens to be.
Good. So we have fundamentals of thematic units. Within our thematic units, and this is, we have thematic units in our integrated courses. Go through this when she shares her unit. We have what we call common readings, which are readings that the faculty member assigns along with supplementary materials. So we'll assign videos and podcasts or images, but these are assigned by the faculty member. And the reason we do that is that since reading is a component of integrated reading and writing, we assign articles where students are grappling over concepts. They are then quoting, they have source integrations within their essays and smaller writing assignments to demonstrate that they comprehend the readings that we're assigning. Student-focused critical thinking activities. And then you have the essay prompts. So we have, and this is the true integration, where you have all of these elements that focus on integrating reading and writing within the thematic units. And then also, I guess I should mention, all of the thematic units that we select directly relate to our students' lives. You'll see that example with Elspeth.
And so all of our curriculum for English 101 and ACLT and most English 102 courses are thematic unit based. So one 15-week semester would be made of about 4 thematic units. Each thematic unit usually takes 3 to 4 weeks. And so the professor chooses a theme, and again, you'll see what this actually looks like. The professor chooses a theme, and then they create curriculum around that theme, and the students study that theme for 1 month. And their readings are all based around the theme. The essay prompt leads up to the theme, and it's all connected. Someone just asked, are you using open source materials? Yes, we do not use any textbooks for ALP or ACLT, and I'm going to show you how we do that too.
Yes, and we actually received a grant a couple years ago through the Maryland Open Source Materials grant. So essential questions, we connect these essential questions to our students' lives. They're grounded in the thematic unit. The essential questions, and you'll see examples, are open-ended questions, so we don't have yes/no type of questions that they respond to. They're thought-provoking and engaging, and it calls for higher order thinking. It raises additional questions, so a lot of times you have your essential questions that then connect to other questions that emerge out of student discussions and student exploration. And these questions require support and justification. And this is where the students will then read the common readings. They'll, of course, research and find their own articles when they're citing sources in their essays. And so it's really requiring them to connect all of the essential questions to higher order thinking and to support and document their thinking. And the essential questions ground the thematic units. So when a faculty member includes essential questions, and we include 3 to 4 essential questions within a unit, those essential questions anchor the units, where you always go back to those questions throughout the unit so that you can show how the activities connect directly to the questions that you've come up with for your students to study. So this finally is, and I'm hoping you can see this fine. I'll increase the screen. But what we have is this chart that we've developed for faculty. It's the ELP Essentials, aligning the co-requisite courses. So since we have English 101 and Academic Literacy 053, someone just asked, do you have OER materials? We do incorporate OERs. We actually ask that faculty not have books in their classes, textbooks in their classes, because we don't want students spending unnecessary money on any materials. We do allow for faculty to use books, novels that are supported through our institution. We have a community book connection program at our institution, and we definitely ask that faculty, if they'd like to teach out of the community book connection book, they're allowed to. So this part right here is not to be inflexible. Instead, it's really to organize and connect the two courses. And we will show you our resources that we have for our faculty, but all of our thematic units that we offer are posted on our learning management system, really to support our adjunct faculty, so that they can access materials since we don't have textbooks. So we have up here the 3 to 4 essential questions that the faculty member develops. Then you list your common reading. You list any additional resources such as videos or TEDx's. And then you go through and just list the types of assignments that you are, and activities that you are assigning in your classes. So this is a chart that we will go through later on. We'll show you charts that are completed. Okay, so Elsbeth, do you want to do this?
Yes, so this is a unit that I used, and it looks a little different than that template that Hale just showed because I wanted it to be more presentable, not in a Microsoft Word document, but it's the same information that was on the template that you just saw. So the theme of this one is education, and it's really focused on kind of education in Baltimore, but I just called it education. And because we're using backward design, the first thing that I want to show you is what are the students working towards? So what's the essay prompt that they're responding to with this 5 weeks worth of work? And so the essay prompt is, tell me the story of your educational history, the journey you've been on, the good, the bad, how you felt about yourself as a learner in your past schooling. Relate your story to at least 2 texts we have read so far in class. So there, they are both writing and reading at the same time. They're pulling in the text. The common text that we will be reading together in this unit will be supporting their own narrative throughout. The essential questions, and again, these can change. These are supposed to be open-ended, and they're really like a food for thought kind of thing that will run like a thread throughout the 5 weeks. So can educational experiences be transformative, and what might that look like? What are policies in place that have large impacts on our local educational systems and on us personally? And how can K-12 educational experience impact a person into adulthood? And so this is the most important piece kind of to the unit because it's the prompt and it's the essential questions. These are the big things that we're working towards. So now we're going to put you to work a little bit. We want you to think about IRW in your courses. We'd like you to think just to yourself for 2 to 3 minutes. Think about an essay prompt that you use or you may be using in the future, and think about ways that you might modify that to adopt the integrated reading and writing approach. And then we'd also like you to think about some smaller low stakes activities that you use in your classes and how might these reinforce integrated reading and writing to help your students better understand their reading, writing, and critical thinking. After you think about this for maybe about 5 minutes, we would like to hear from some of you. And so we're going to open up that if a couple of us would like to share out on the mic, I think that that would be helpful. And I'll show you the rest of the unit.
What?
We might want to make sure now, though, that we're all muted.
Oh. That was yesterday, honey.
My mom's gonna call her at 5:30.
Okay.
Hi, all. Somebody needs to mute.
Okay, so we can take about 5 minutes just to reflect on these 2 questions, and then we'll come back together and maybe a couple of us can share out.
Does anyone have questions before we break out for the
It
5
says,
minutes?
are the courses only available face-to-face?
No, we have fully online courses. We have fully online courses as well. And we can, if we have time at the end, we're happy to dip into fully online classes just so you can see what that looks like. Any other questions about this activity? Okay, so about 5 minutes.
Halle, while we're paused, can you make me a co-host? And then I can mute people when we get interference on the line.
Yes.
Holly, someone did ask for examples for the 052 course.
Absolutely. I can share examples for the 052 course. Not in this workshop, but I can definitely get you 052 examples. I'll send everything to Jenny, Jenny, and then you can share those.
We're also going to be giving our emails at the end. Feel free to email us at any time.
Jenny, how do I share that permission?
If
How do
you
I-
go to your name where it says that you're the host, and or go to my name and then click on the more, and it should be able to, you should be able to click on make co-host.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Did it work?
Yep, perfect, thank you.
Great. It's 3:26, so we'll end at 3:30 when we'll then start sharing. Okay. So it's 3:30, so we can come back together. And we really want, we understand that we typically do these consultations in person, so we would typically put you in groups. And so you're working in a more isolated way, but we do want to hear your voices in this. So what are some, let's talk about the first bullet point, the essay prompt that you used in your class, reflecting on one, and discuss ways in which you might modify it to adopt the IRW approach. Who is willing to share?
You don't even have to share your picture. You can just unmute yourself and share.
Start since no one else is jumping in.
Thank you, Holly.
I've taught developmental reading at MCC for 9 years now, and we're just starting to look at IRW, but my background is K-12, so this is like, wow, this is everything I studied in college to integrate it, so it's great. I always have students start off with a very informal journal about why they're at MCC and why they're in developmental reading. So I can see really integrating it with some readings, and particularly because we're doing online this fall, I think I'll do a series of readings about online education because there's so much out there that's negative and some positive, and then students could focus on what their perceptions are about it and then look at what helps people be successful online.
That's great.
That's great.
And relevant.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Hi, Amber.
Hi. I have an example. My students in my integrated reading and writing class, they have to take a final reading assessment and a final writing assessment, and so they read the seat not taken, and the theme is a bias or prejudice, and they're encouraged to use all of the different reading strategies that we've learned throughout the semester, and they are given a test. And then their final writing prompt is based on that theme. And and they have, I think, 4 different prompts, but they are things that are relatable to them, such as provide examples of experience with bias or prejudice from your perspective or from somebody close to you. It's identify what you feel are the most common ones in our area. And then there's a couple more.
That's great.
That's great.
Thanks, Amber. Okay, can we get a couple more? That's fine. So what we'll do is move on to the lower stakes activities, that bullet point. How might you use these to reinforce the IRW model to help your students better understand both their reading, writing, and critical thinking? So your lower stakes scaffolded activities, what did you think of?
I'll go again.
Yes, Holly. Thank you.
I know how awful it is when you're going, somebody please talk. I make my students annotate everything they read, so I can see doing much more prescriptive assignments for annotation. Find specific support for your opinion related to this or something like that. And that's like every reading they have, and it's for a low amount of points. So then those could be used for their responses.
Perfect.
Right, and especially if the essay is related to those readings, they can then use that in the actual essay. So none of it is busy work, it's all leading to that final project. And so it's all helpful, it's all building up to that.
Yeah. Yep.
Does anyone have another addition to add? Would anyone else like to participate? If not, we're going to, oh, Michelle.
We have, I don't know, can you hear me right now?
Yes.
Yeah, so our final English 101 assessment is a portfolio with a reflective letter. And so some of our low stakes assignments in the IRW are often just on reflection for reading and writing. And every time students turn in a 101 or their IRW paper, a lot of our professors will have students working on those metacognitive skills to then have for their 101 assessment later on down the road. And we've actually found that to be very helpful, just to build in that reflection as they're going, and then they're way less stressed when they get to their 101 final exam.
Yeah, that's great. We do that
Awesome.
too. We have final portfolio along with reflections throughout. It's very useful. So we're going to move forward so that you can see Elsbeth's unit, which I've used also.
Someone asked, does anyone use Perusal for annotations? It's wonderful. I do not, but I will check it out.
I do not either.
Okay.
Who asked that? And
Paula?
Paula. What is it, Paula?
It's a platform developed by a Harvard professor, I believe, who found that many students were coming to class unprepared. And so he created this platform where you can upload your reading. And then what I found is if I build in, I highlight something and I put in a question, and students will, just to stimulate their thinking until they get used to using the platform, because granted it is one more platform. But I found that I can integrate it right into my Moodle classes, because I asked people into adding it as an external tool that they can link to. So as long as the students get to it through Moodle, then it will, the beautiful thing about Perusal is it scores the annotations itself using our artificial intelligence. And the testing of it found that I think it was 80% teachers grading the annotations agreed with the artificial intelligence. So it's pretty good. And then it will, so since it scores it for you, then it will automatically upload into your gradebook. And you can still go back and change it if you don't, if the student disputes the grade, and you can look at the annotations yourself. But basically, it allows you to make the reading social online, and so that they hate it, but then they get to like it.
That's great.
Gotcha. That sounds cool. Someone else suggested Hypothesis. It's an app that can go onto Blackboard and Canvas. And then someone said, can we screen share the sites at the end?
The sites that were
I think the apps, those suggested apps. Yes.
Sure. Okay. I can look them up. Okay. So Elsbeth.
Okay. Yes.
And before you go on, another good thing to do is to drop the links into that chat.
Yes,
oh, that's great. Thank you, Jenny.
So this unit, like I said, the theme is education. And as we said too, every unit consists of common readings. So for this one, the students aren't doing any independent research. It's the first unit of the semester. And so I kind of work up to the independent research. That doesn't mean that your unit can't have independent research. I'm just showing you what this one has. I also want to explain too, I was new to IRW in 2016. So I was approaching this from a writing teacher's lens. And so I'll talk about that a little bit as I share my unit, because the first probably 6 years that I was teaching, I viewed the readings as that's the student's responsibility. It's their job to figure out who the author is, what the title means. I'm just going to assign them the reading, and then they should come in ready to talk about it. I have completely changed now that I have learned about integration, and I've learned that it can help the students to engage with the text actively and do that together. It's not cheating to talk about the reading before the students read it. This may have been apparent to everyone else. It wasn't to me as a writing teacher, because I had always been taught that way in my English literature courses. It was read this novel and then come ready to talk about it. No one helped me before I read it. And so part of that is what stands out to me in this IRW process. So anyway, the common readings. We read the first half of this book called The Other Westmore. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this. This is written by an author who is from Baltimore, and he went on, he was born in West Baltimore, and he struggled a little bit growing up, but then he went on to go to a military academy, ended up working under Obama, is still very a public figure. But when he was in his 20s, his mother read a newspaper article, his name is Wes Moore, the author, of another person named Wes Moore who also grew up in West Baltimore and was in prison for life. And so what he did was he interviewed the other Wes and he told their parallel life stories. And it's very interesting because they're extremely similar, and it talks about the systems in place around each man and how their lives changed and how their lives were different. We read the whole book, but this unit just spans on the first half of the book. Another thing that we read is this article called The School of Failure, How Schools Groom African Americans for the Underclass by D. Watkins. D. Watkins is a writer who's from Baltimore as well, so you can see this is a theme in a theme. And he writes this article. It's very accessible for students. It goes from present tense to past tense. And so he's walking through a Baltimore City middle school with his nephew and talking about what it looks like and what his nephew's going through in current times. But then he also has layers of history in it in terms of systemic racism and slavery and all different types of the history of our education system in America. And the students really like it because he's funny too and creative. And so, like I said, it kind of weaves back and forth. So that's another reading. And then we also end the unit by watching this documentary called All the Difference. It's part of the POV series on PBS. And this was actually produced by Wes Moore and his mother. And what this does is it follows two men through their undergraduate career. It's 2 hours long. My students love it. It's very real in terms of there are dramatic things that happen to both of them, just like what happens to us in life. They were followed by a Crammer Cruise for 4 years. They go through academic struggles, personal struggles, and again, it's that kind of parallel thing, but in the personal story, there's also the larger systemic issues at play. So this is just to give you an idea of what the day-to-day looks like. And again, why I'm showing you this is to really show how intentional I am with the integrated reading and writing piece. No more am I just having them read and not acknowledge it, and no more am I just having them do these isolated writing exercises. Everything is together in context of the essay. And so I'm not going to read you every single tiny assignment that I give them, but there are some I'd like to highlight just to show what this actually looks like. For example, before they read the first chapter of the book, The Other Wes Moore, we watch the trailer for the book. They have book trailers now, so that's pretty cool, just like a movie trailer, but it's a preview of the book. Students love that. And then I asked them this question: what might be major things in people's lives that lead them in different directions? So they're already thinking about the major themes that are going to come up in this first chapter. In the video trailer, they have already seen what the author looks like. They already are thinking about what does the title mean. They're already seeing what the characters look like. So they're going into this ready and understanding the context instead of, like I said, how I learned. I was just figuring it out. I'm sitting there at home with a book and trying to figure out who are these people, what's going on. So they're going into the book with an idea now instead of trying to put the pieces together. We have an ongoing journal in the co-requisite course in the 053. For example, one of the questions would be something, and this before they're reading, where are places you hear people referred to as other? So they're already engaging in what some of the ideas are going to be in the reading. They don't necessarily know that yet, and then they're writing too. So again, these things are happening at the same time, not separate. It's all happening at the same time. Someone asked a question: does common reading mean common to students in English 101 and ALP, or across all sections of English 101? What I mean by common reading is everyone in my class is reading those same exact readings for the whole unit. And so they're reading them in English 101. They don't have any additional readings necessarily in ACLT 053. So it's as if you had everyone reading a novel, that's a common reading. Okay, the next week, and again, I'm just kind of throwing out prompts here and there to show you how I'm doing the integration. They're annotating So for instance, in English 101, they're reading and annotating a student essay, and the essay is in response to the same exact prompt that they're writing the essay to. So it's an essay that's answering the question, tell me your educational history, and they're bringing in the other Westmore. Before, I would have thought this was giving the students an upper hand. Now I'm realizing, no, they can learn from seeing my past students' essays that are about the same topic, that are engaging in the same book. It's not cheating, quote unquote. And so again, we're engaging with the text in both courses. They're starting to pre-read for the School of Failure. So I have them watch videos of Dee Watkins, that's the author of that article, on CNN. So again, I'm showing them the author. I'm having them think about the themes that they're going to be reading about instead of just blindly giving them the readings. We annotate the article together in the 053 course. And another thing I want to point out, I still am doing citation instruction, MLA instruction, things like that, but I'm doing it in context of the essay. So instead of just giving them the Purdue OWL website, we will together, okay, how do we cite the other Westmore, the book? And we'll do it as a group together. And now they have one of their citations done, and we've done it as a group, and they're learning MLA. Again, another example of just a scaffolding activity that I think does the IRW approach is one of these journal prompts. How do you interpret the quote, in 3rd grade, I was reading at 2nd grade reading level. Later in life, I learned that the way many governors projected the number of beds they need for prison facilities was by examining the reading scores of 3rd graders. That's from the other Westmore. How can you relate this to any ideas in the School of Failure, which is the article? So again, they're reflecting on the idea, they're pulling in quotes, and they're relating text to text and trying to synthesize ideas here. Again, this is a very low stakes activity. I wouldn't be grading it very strictly, but they're engaging in both the reading and writing at the same time. These are not separate skills. This just shows after we turn in that major essay, I do a formative assessment all the time, which I call take the temperature. Well, now I probably won't use that in COVID times, but I used to say that in terms of, did you like that theme? Did you like the readings? What didn't you like about it? What, all different things. And then again, they're doing that metacognitive reflection in the integrated course in the ACLT 053 course, where they're talking about how their reading process went, the writing process, critical thinking, things like that. I just wanted to show you how what the trajectory is too. This is just the beginning of the 2nd unit, because people always ask me, well, then what do you do next? And so it gets a little bit more sophisticated, I think. The essay topic for this is, how does mindset and social capital operate in both the other Westmore and all the difference? Trace how growth and fixed mindset were present in the lives of these men and how this affected them. How did social capital impact their lives? Along with the 2 texts, you must also include one outside source that helps support the theoretical aspects of the essay. So they're finishing the other Westmore, the book, they're pulling on the documentary, but then also they're using theory now. They're using they're using mindset theory, and they're using social capital theory to look at these texts in a different lens. So now you can see we are going into independent research a little bit here, and like I said, it's a little bit more sophisticated because they're bringing in sociological theory, education theory. So that was an example of an actual unit. Again, that chart that Hale showed, that would have been filled out in kind of a Microsoft Word version, but that's the easy to understand. Does anybody have questions in general about thematic units?
Do you see questions, Els?
No. Okay, we can move on. And again, we're going to show you another example too of the thematic unit, but our whole curriculum is built around this in all of the ACLT and our English 101. I make it seem easy. That probably took me 60 hours to develop. So someone said that you make it seem easy. I wasn't just saying that, Hale.
It is time consuming. So that's a great point. It's really time consuming to fully develop these units, but once you have them, we have to modify them, right? Because we want the units to be current to our students' lives. And so we go through every couple semesters and swap out articles, for example, for common readings, or swap out some content. But for the most part, these units are supposed to remain relevant in our students' lives, and we make sure we try to stay current. So you're front loading your work at the very beginning if you're developing a unit, but you're supporting so many of your faculty, because then we're able to share all of these units with all of our faculty, and they're open to our full-time faculty at our institution and our part-time, and they're utilized by all. So it's really great. And when Elsbeth, for example, or myself, when we share these units with faculty, they're not set in stone. They're welcome to modify as they see fit as well. It's just a really great starting block for everyone.
I also want to mention too, don't feel overwhelmed that we have all these thematic units. It's taken us years to build kind of a shared site of these. We've worked with many colleges where people are still using textbooks. That's okay if that's where you are. You can still have a themed based approach, and you can still do integration, even if you do have textbooks. A lot of people we've worked with have textbooks that are mandated from above, that are out of their control. And so don't feel beholden just to this. This is our approach, and we think it is a best practice. But if you're not there yet, that's okay. But the main thing is we really want to stress not separating out those skills, but again, integrating them, because they are so naturally paired together and they support each other. So the reading and writing can be happening at the same time instead of separating them out.
So grounding with Bickerstaff's model that Elsbeth presented on earlier in the presentation is a great starting point for that. So we have another activity, and what we would like you to do is, as a group, let's think of thematic units that would be relevant to your students' lives, and then individually develop 2 to 3 draft essential questions to ground your proposed unit. We actually don't have breakout rooms. So what we're going to do is modify this and really ask you to think about thematic units that would be relevant to your students' lives individually, and then just share them. And we'll give you some time to think of some proposed thematic units that connect to your students' lives at your institution. So let's go ahead and work on the first bullet point, and we'll give you about 3 minutes to generate a list of thematic units for your students. So that would be at 3:55, we'll get back together. Okay, so what thematic unit ideas did you generate? And obviously this is a draft list, but let's talk about some of those. And interject at any point.
Yes, Deborah. Deborah, can you unmute? In the left corner, if you hit the microphone button. There you go.
Okay, how about something like, how do I balance my education or my educational journey with real life? Because that strikes directly at the heart of our students. Kids, childcare, family responsibilities, work, illness. I have students taking care of grandparents, getting their younger brothers and sisters to school. So to me, that would be right at the heart of their life. I mean, really.
Peter would love that. Peter Adams would love that.
Yeah, because that's all those non-cognitive life issues that happen that are really the struggles for our students, not the academics. Those are the things that cause them not to complete.
Yeah, my car doesn't start. I don't have a car.
Yep.
Busting on time. Whatever they have. Some days I just look at my students and I think, I don't know how you make it through a day with
they're
all
amazing.
the other obstacles that are just bombarding their lives.
Thank you.
Yeah, there have to be great articles out now about, you know, the lives of students. I know that one, Holly, in our community college unit about a community college in New York City. But anyway, there has to be tons of readings about that.
Yeah, the LaGuardia Community College, the Belafonte article.
Yeah.
I just saw there was a hand raised and now I don't see that. But if your hand was raised, just go ahead and pipe in.
It's Erica.
Hi, Erica.
Oh, hi. I didn't know if it was me or somebody else. I was just going to mention, Jenny and I were looking at a article, I think it was in Inside Higher Ed in the last week, where the writing assignments focused on a student's sense of belonging on campus. And I thought that was a great, you know, kind of integration of, well, reading and writing, but then also, you know, retention and student success efforts. And I think you could have a lot of great, as you describe, kind of multi-strategies, maybe bringing in the counseling center and advisors and things like that into that conversation as well. Seems like it would be a great unit.
That's great.
That would be great.
And that's real current research. So that connects to our students' lives. Very good. Any other hands that are raised or units? And we will go into our learning management system. We use Blackboard, and we'll share the thematic units that we have posted in Blackboard. Okay. So now what we'd like you to do is you generated a list of thematic units. Think of one of the thematic units where you would want to develop some essential questions. I don't think we have time to develop 2 to 3 essential questions to ground your proposed unit, but perhaps you can start developing one of the essential questions. For example, Erica could look at the belongings unit that she just talked about and start drafting in an open-ended question for that unit. So go ahead and do that, and we will give you, Elsbeth, do you think another
2 to 3 minutes?
2 to 3 minutes? Okay, so it's 3:59, so we'll just say 4:03. So go ahead and do that, please.
Holly, someone said, could they see my essential questions again?
The mindsets, social capital and mindset essential questions are up for your reference.
do your life for factors play interfere with your success? On the other hand,
Okay. Erica, can we pick on you? Is that okay?
Yeah, sure. I was, like you were describing, Haleh, just thinking about some of the introducing students to some of the research on belonging, and focusing on asking questions around their sense of, and I'm not an English faculty member, so full disclosure, this is kind of outside my wheelhouse, but just really focusing on kind of reflecting on why they think that would be important to feel connected with the campus. I think particularly for community college students who sometimes feel that that sense of belonging is accessible to students at residential colleges may not feel that same way at a community college. And so kind of socializing that conversation, I think would be just one question I would ask.
Mhm.
Yeah, thank you. And sorry for putting you on the spot like that.
That's okay.
Who else thought of some draft questions? We're hoping all of you did.
Oh, related to Erica's theme, I didn't word it well, but I was thinking along the lines of how people can be socially connected during this era of social distancing. And so some question related to how can people truly connect with others when we're required or encouraged to be socially distant or physically distant.
Yeah, that's great.
Paula in the chat said, could emotional intelligence possibly be a unit? Guiding question, how can EQ help you navigate through college?
Yeah, I'd like to hear more about your thought process, Paul, and how it would connect to your students. I think it could, but I never considered that. So can you talk through some of that?
She might be feeling shy. That's okay.
Oh, and I said Paul, so
Paula, sorry.
Paula, okay. That's okay. Paula, if you type in more or share later on, that would be great.
I was just thinking that so many of my students get hijacked by their emotions. Like someone in their family does something and they get really upset in response to what other people do. And then kind of get caught up in that and don't come to class because they're upset. And so by being able to be more familiar with, being able to name your emotions and then manage your response to them, name other people's emotions and behaviors and manage your response to their behaviors or their emotions. Could it help you ultimately be more successful and focus on your own goals?
Yeah, I think that's really relevant to our students' lives. I'm wondering if that would be a piece of a thematic unit. So if it could be a part of a unit relating to non-cognitive factors, students' non-cognitive issues. Deborah, I think you were saying earlier, your proposed unit would be on the non-cognitive factors. And so could that be a piece of that? The thing with, and perhaps what was just suggested could be a full thematic unit. You just have to explore and try to develop essential questions to see if you can find enough common readings. If you have, the way we we do this, and Elsbeth said this earlier on, but a whole thematic unit lasts about 3 to 4 weeks. And so do you have enough content to really concentrate on building a unit? There's my son interrupting me, I'm sorry. So do we have enough content to explore a 3 to 4 week thematic unit? So yeah, I would say explore that. And if you feel like you don't have enough content in that essential question or in that unit, then you definitely want to broaden that. Sometimes I've been in the situation where I've created thematic units that are just too broad as well. And then I have to focus a little more because it's a little unwieldy and it becomes too big of a unit that can be covered in that 3 to 4 weeks. We do have faculty yeah, we were just going to say the same thing because we thought about it at the same time. We have some faculty who have whole semester units. Is that what you were going to say?
Yes.
Okay. So we have full semester units, and that, I mean, that's wonderful too, because then you have a real comprehensive study and exploration of this one unit that goes through. So Elsbeth could have this education unit that spans across different facets of whatever she's defining as education. So that's absolutely something that's successful in many of our classes. And I would say, going back to Elsbeth's thematic unit, she has her education unit, but then she has the social capital and mindset unit, and they're not isolated. They work hand in hand because she's using common readings that tap into both of those units. So Elsbeth, when you teach this, you're really doing you're encompassing and connecting the two for a reason, right?
Yeah, I don't want it to just seem like an arbitrary, now we're going to talk about something completely different because it's week 6. But some people do that, and that's also great because maybe the students didn't really dig the first unit, and then the next one's about food, and it's completely different, and that also can be great. This one, I wanted them, it was because we were reading the whole book. They were inherently going to be connected because it was the same text that they were using throughout, but sometimes I'll switch it up and there'll be different units. It really just depends on preference of the professor.
Okay. So ELP and IRW faculty development going forward. These are some things that we wanted to introduce to you as you think about how you're planning to move forward. We have faculty development formats, and earlier on, someone asked who teaches these classes, and we all in academic literacy and in English teach these courses. So we have multi-day seminars, we have face-to-face or online sessions where we train each other, ongoing training throughout a semester or academic year. We used to have something called faculty inquiry groups, and these faculty inquiry groups were grounded in the idea that we were switching from the developmental levels of isolated English and reading courses, and then we're beginning to integrate. And so these faculty inquiry groups were faculty teaching the new IRW model would meet on a monthly basis to really discuss the good, bad, and ugly of what it means to fully integrate and go through that transition. And it was really useful because we would ground our inquiry groups with topics. So we would say, you know, we all submitted assignments, you know, during a certain week, maybe it was week 3 or 4 of the faculty inquiry, of the semester, I'm sorry, and we had already assigned our first essay. So we may all decide that we want to bring in student essays and talk about grading and how we would grade the student essays. So it was a really great experience because it was a fluid type of meeting. It wasn't really a meeting. It was actually more of a cohort where faculty would bond together and really talk about how we could improve our teaching to best serve our students. And you have to be intentional about that because you can go down the road of complaining about students and making it a a session where there are complaints, and that's fine to bring in complaints, but you want to really make it solution oriented and productive so that you're working toward improving the course and moving forward in that course, so that once you're ready to scale up in IRW, you're prepared to do so with the faculty who are engaged in the faculty inquiry group. We have a mentor-mentee system or a coach-mentor system where we assign brand new integrated faculty and ELP faculty with a veteran faculty member who has taught the courses. And that's very useful. I think that that's probably our most useful for faculty development that we've offered, because faculty who have a mentor feel like, okay, this isn't necessarily my direct supervisor, but it's someone with a lot of knowledge, and I can go ahead and ask this person several questions about what's going on instead of going to my direct supervisor. It's something that people have said that they really appreciate.
Can I bring up one point too?
Absolutely.
So the reason that we're sharing this is because if you or your institution is wanting to go from reading and writing to integrated reading and writing, we really recommend that you have ongoing professional development that is supported. This is not something that can be learned overnight and you're a writing professor and now you just get it and you're fully IRW. As I said, I came from a writing background. Most of the people in the English department with me have literature backgrounds. Things like learning reading strategies, I've never heard one thing about that in any of my schooling. So all of my training happened in these things that Hale is showing on these slides here. And I learned so much from my colleagues who were experts in reading strategies and who were experts in IRW. And so I saw in the chat that we have some administrators here, we have reading faculty and English faculty. I just urge you that this does not happen overnight. And Peter Adams, who created ALP, now one of the things that he's saying over and over again is that integration is great, but we do not want reading instruction to go away. So when reading departments are merging with English departments, that can go fine, but we want to make sure that that doesn't just become a writing course and that the reading doesn't go away, because students still need that reading support. They're not going to get it in any other course. So we are the only ones that are going to help them with annotating and pre-reading and things like that. When they go into other content areas, we need to provide them with those techniques. And so the reason we're showing this again is because that development piece is so important for moving forward. This can't be a one-day training. It has to be ongoing, because things will happen that you had no clue were about to happen, and having that support, having a mentor or a group that meets once a month really helps. It really helped me, at least. And again, I was pretty candid about how I really had transitioned and changed from my approach in teaching completely when I learned about IRW.
Okay, so then thank you, Elspeth.
Yep.
Faculty development and logistics. So when you're thinking about all of this, we have our learning management system that we use for sharing our course, for sharing materials, the units, and we'll show you that in a little bit. We have a team of trainers to plan and oversee faculty development. The team of trainers are Elsbeth and myself. We are given release time as part of our load as the co-directors of ALP, but we collaborate deeply with the chair of English, the chair of academic literacy, along with the two deans who oversee these areas. So we have our school dean, which is the academic dean, but we also have a dean of developmental education. So this is just our structure at the Community College of Baltimore County. Obviously, your structures will look a little different, but the main thing is that we're collaborating with all the stakeholders involved, along with the coordinators who are staffing these sections. Elsbeth and I don't staff these courses. And so, for example, today we sent out an email to all of the coordinators saying, please send us names of all faculty who are new to integration and ALP in the fall, so that we can train them on whatever date that we picked. So we want to make sure that there's, Yeah, and that's where we give the mentor as well, assign a mentor. And when we have that training for brand new ALP and IRW faculty, the mentors are invited so that they can connect with the people that they are mentoring, so that they immediately on day one are building relationships with that person. We do give stipends and other incentives such as certificates to participants at our institution. So for that workshop, it is mandatory if you're a brand new ALP faculty member to attend this 2-day workshop to learn about IRW and ALP. And when they attend that, our Dean of Developmental Education has in her budget line that she pays them a stipend to attend that, even though it's mandatory. Attendance is, or that stipend is given to adjunct faculty, not to full-time faculty. And then we have a workshop series that we offer internally, and within that workshop series, faculty, once they complete the series, that's designed through our office in ALP, in the Accelerated Learning Program, we then give out certificates of completion. And then we're always working with our planning, research, and evaluation group because they're tracking our students, they're giving us data and providing us feedback on how to address changes. For example, we made curricular changes and revised our course objectives in English 101 and 102 based off of data provided by planning, research, and evaluation. So all of these groups are coming together to communicate, and this ongoing communication really is ongoing. It's not like a once a year type of thing. We're meeting and talking and trying to plan intentionally with all of these groups so that we can serve our students. Do you have questions about this slide or any of the other slides?
Yes, there's one question. Someone asked, does CCBC have a writing center, and what role do they play in IRW, if any? Our writing center, when we did change to integration, was renamed the Writing and Literacy Center. So the Writing Center's approach also follows IRW in terms of the people who work there, the consultants, understand what we are doing with our curriculum in our composition and ACLT courses. Students can go to our Writing and Literacy Center with any writing. It doesn't have to be an English paper, but the consultants there understand the approach.
And faculty often are the consultants in the Writing and Literacy Center. They work in there as service to the college, for example. So I've worked in the Writing and Literacy Center for college service, and it's really wonderful that we have our faculty who are teaching these classes working with our students directly. We also have an online writing lab, which is really our Writing and Literacy Center, which is offered online. And those faculty also are the faculty who teach our courses. Any other questions, Elspeth?
No, that's it.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is minimize my page as I log into, actually I'm already logged into Blackboard. And we have an ALP professional development page that we have faculty auto enroll in once they become or are hired as ALP faculty. And we have different areas. We send out announcements to our faculty, teaching ALP often. And we have theme-based teaching units, which is really the meat of this learning management system resource. So that template, the template for teaching theme-based units is right there. And I actually have that pulled up for you. This is the template that I showed prior to Elspeth sharing her unit. And this template is a blank version of what faculty complete if they're willing to share their thematic units with other faculty. So someone earlier asked, what are the common readings?
Is it me or did she freeze?
Hello, are you there?
Common readings. We have them list
Okay.
essential questions. Will be done, and this is a team based. Did someone have a question?
Yeah, you're breaking up.
I am.
Mhm. Now I can see you.
Okay. Did someone have a question or did you miss content?
It was just showing the theme-based units, but it's okay, and the template. Jenny said she will give them the template if we email it to her, which we will do.
Yes, we will. So what I wanted to do is go through our theme-based teaching units. We have organized our thematic units according to larger topics. So we have culture, identity and quality of life, financial literacy units, race and social issues. Those are all of our units. We do have hidden units, and those hidden units are based off of, they were great units, but they're a little outdated at this point. And we've mentioned that we want our units to be current and relevant to our students' lives. So whenever we have units that are outdated, we put them in the hidden units folder. We never want to delete them because faculty sometimes will say, oh, I'll update that unit so that it's current and relevant again. And so we have that structure where we don't want to lose the units, but we hide them until they're updated. So what I'll do is I'm going to go to the identity and quality of life unit or folder and click on the gentrification unit. So Jocelyn Broadwick is an adjunct faculty member, and she creates amazing units, and she's given us permission to share her unit. So this right here is the chart that I showed you, the blank template for a thematic unit. And I wanted to highlight some things that Jocelyn has included on her page. So she starts off with instructor notes. The instructor notes are very useful because they point out, for example, she's saying, I'm going to teach this alongside these other units, the identity unit, and I'll pair it with Nancy Murray's Art of Making a Difference unit. So that right there shows that she has her whole semester designed around these 3 units, okay? And then she goes through and discusses that she designed it for a 15-week semester, but she talks about how it could be modified for a shorter semester, for example, or for a Monday, Wednesday, Friday class if they need to. She's giving context. And by the way, Jenny, I will send this to you as well. We have permission to share this. She gives context about the essay and how she's dividing peer groups. And then she's also going through and including I'm sorry, I scrolled too fast, other notations for faculty. She then lists common readings, and you can see this is a lot of work, but she's listing the common readings. And then after the common readings, she gives the prompt for the essay, and then the unit schedule, which is similar to what Elsbeth presented when she integrated the presentation of her unit in the PowerPoint. So I'm going to share this with you, and you'll see that Jocelyn's unit is fully developed where she has all of her quizzes, all of her prompts, all of her scaffolded activities for anyone to use. This is really what all of our units look like. So I'll stop scrolling.
3-minute warning.
We have a couple minutes left, and we did want to go back to the PowerPoint. Please, while I'm going back to the PowerPoint, please ask questions if you have any.
And again, I think to point out, the thematic units are not the end all be all. If you are not there yet, that's okay. The main thing we wanted to show was integration, but we are seeing this as kind of the easiest way to not use textbooks and support our faculty, because anyone can pick up one of those units if they get staffed for a class that starts tomorrow and be ready to go. And again, because all of the readings are either linked or PDFs, we don't have to worry about textbooks or anything like that. Are there any thoughts or questions? There's no
Do you see
questions
any,
coming up.
Elspeth?
Well,
Okay,
very impressive, and thank you.
thank you. Well,
So feel free to email us anytime, and we will send Jenny the gentrification unit, the template, and you will have access to these slides as well. But we are around, so send us an email if you have a question about IRW or out.
I will also send an ACLT 052 thematic unit.
Oh yeah.
I have a unit that I can share that I developed. Are there other items that you'd like us to send? If so, just put it in the chat box or let us know right now so that we can include other materials if we have them.
All right.
Wonderful.
Thank
Well,
you very
thank you
much for your
so
time.
much. This was wonderful. Thank you, everyone.
Oh, and the SDP.
Yeah, it's directed self-placement, right?
Oh, yes, we'll give you the contact for our faculty who lead SDP.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Have a good rest of your afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be in touch, Jenny.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.